Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Yemen, Houthi-run media reports U.S. airstrikes targeting the Ras Isa oil port have killed at least 58 people. Over 125 others were wounded. The U.S. has been systematically attacking Yemen over the past month after Houthi fighters vowed to continue targeting Red Sea ships tied to Israel's war on Gaza. U.S. airstrikes on Yemen have killed over 180 people since mid-March, including many women and children. Israel's bombardment of Gaza continues, claiming at least another 34 victims today, including 10 members of the same family that were killed in a strike on a home in Khan Yunis earlier today. Meanwhile, one of the victims of an Israeli airstrike on Wednesday was revealed to be the young Palestinian photojournalist Fatima Hassona. She was killed along with 10 members of her family in Gaza City. She's the subject of a new documentary that was just accepted at the Cannes Film Festival. We'll speak with the director, Sepida Farsi, later in the broadcast. Hamas is calling for comprehensive ceasefire negotiations to definitively end the war on Gaza, including a full captive swap, as it rejected an Israeli interim proposal.
Netanyahu and his government use partial agreements as a cover for their political agenda, which is based on continuing the war of extermination and starvation. Even if the price is sacrificing all his hostages, we will not be part of passing this policy.
In legal news, the international criminal courts initiated proceedings against Hungary after the government of Prime Minister Viktor Orban failed to execute an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he visited Hungary earlier this month. Just ahead of the visit, Orban announced he's withdrawing from the ICC. Netanyahu is wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen confirmed Thursday night he met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland father who the Trump administration says they forcibly transferred to an El Salvador mega prison last month by administrative error. Van Hollen shared a photo of the two seated together at a table in what appears to be a hotel restaurant. Senator Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador Wednesday in a push for Abrego Garcia's release, but had initially been barred from having any contact with him. Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer, celebrated the meeting, saying in a statement, "My children and my prayers have been answered," unquote. Meanwhile, in response to the senator's visit, Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele said on social media, quote, "Now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody." Bukele also wrote, quote, "Kilmar Abrego Garcia miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador," unquote. Abrego Garcia lived in Maryland for almost 15 years after fleeing gang violence in El Salvador and is a sheet metal worker. This comes as a federal appeals court ruled the Trump administration must comply with a judge's order for government officials to be deposed over Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case. That judge, Paula Zinnes, is weighing contempt proceedings against Trump officials. In the unanimous ruling Thursday, Fourth Circuit Court Judge Harvey Wilkinson, who was appointed by Ronald Reagan, wrote the Trump administration's acts are shocking, writing, quote, "The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order," unquote. This all comes as ACLU immigration attorney Lee Gallant has confirmed that a group of Venezuelan immigrants currently jailed at the Bluebonnet ICE jail in Texas were told they are at risk of also being expelled from the United States under the controversial Alien Enemies Act of 1798, despite the ongoing legal challenges against its use. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear oral arguments over President Trump's executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship. As the measure remains on hold, the hearing is scheduled for May 15th, with a decision likely to be issued this summer. Federal Several federal lower court judges have blocked the order, saying it violates the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment. Trump signed the executive order on his first day back in office. In other immigration news, Reuters is reporting Secretary of State Marco Rubio is ordering officials to review the social media accounts of visa applicants who visited the Gaza Strip any time in the past 18 years, including for work with aid organizations. A U.S.-born citizen who was arrested in Florida, accused of being undocumented and entering the state unlawfully, has been released after spending the night in jail on a 48-hour hold requested by ICE. Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez is from Georgia and was driving across state lines to his construction job in Tallahassee when he was pulled over, then taken into custody. He remained jailed despite presenting a copy of his birth certificate and Social Security card brought to court by his mother. Lopez Gomez was arrested and charged under a contested anti-immigration law known as SB 4C, signed by Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis 2 months ago, despite a federal court order temporarily blocking the measure from being enforced. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has signed a $30 million deal with the controversial surveillance tech giant Palantir, which will be used to help track and deport immigrants, including people who might have overstayed their visas. A database would also track cases of self-deportation and share data with Customs and Border Protection. The outlet 404 Media reports Palantir, which was founded by Elon Musk ally and billionaire Trump supporter Peter Thiel, has been working in recent weeks to increase ICE's capacity to monitor immigrants with final deportation orders. The new agreement is an extension of a contract with Palantir first signed by the Biden administration. Here in New York City, members of Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, their allies and elected leaders, gathered Thursday for the group's annual Seder in the streets on the 6th night of Passover. The protest took place under the banner of No Fascists, No Pharaohs. New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani spoke at the event.
And we know that in this moment in this city, when 1 in 4 New Yorkers is living in poverty, when 500,000 children go to sleep hungry every night, when more than 90% of New Yorkers agree that affordability is a serious issue, that this freedom is not just the right to live with our families in homes, but to be able to afford that home, to afford that dinner that we can share together as we break that bread.
Meanwhile, in Boston, 400 Jewish residents and others joined rabbis and community leaders to call for the release of the abducted Tufts graduate student, Ramesa Ozturk. The Passover rally was organized by the progressive Jewish group, If Not Now. On Wednesday, an immigration judge denied bond for Ozturk, declaring her to be a potential so-called danger to the community. Ramesa Ozturk is from Turkey. She was arrested in the streets of Somerville by masked agents for co-authoring a student op-ed on Tufts' response to Gaza solidarity protests on campus. The Trump administration is threatening to bar Harvard from enrolling international students unless university officials hand over the records of its current international students. This comes after Harvard openly rejected Trump's earlier ultimatum to the school, asserting its independence and constitutional rights. Meanwhile, House Republicans launched a civil rights probe into Harvard over its policy on trans athletes and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, which defy Trump's orders. On Thursday, protests took place on college campuses across the United States, condemning the White House's attack on education and students. This is a student at the University of California, Berkeley.
I think that we have something that we're fighting for that is a little bit different than what we've been fighting for in the past, and that is our very right to keep fighting and our right to resist and our right to speak and learn and teach, even if it disagrees with a current political regime. And I think this is the fight to win all fights, and that we need to show up and in a way that is more powerful and more abundant than in the past.
A federal judge ruled Google has run illegal monopolies on 2 markets for web advertising technology. It's the second antitrust ruling against Google in the past year. In 2023, a federal jury also concluded Google's proprietary app store is an unlawful monopoly. But the judge Thursday struck down one of the Justice Department's arguments against Google, making it unclear whether or when Google will be forced to sell off part of its online ad business. Consumer advocates welcomed yesterday's news, with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren declaring, quote, Google is an illegal monopolist and it's time to break up this tech giant, Senator Warren said. President Trump threatened to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell after Powell opted not to cut interest rates and warned Trump's tariffs are highly likely to raise inflation and slow growth. Trump made the comments renewing an ongoing dispute in his first term, despite the Fed's independence being protected by law.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
The Supreme Court is currently reviewing a case involving 2 labor officials whom Trump fired, but were later reinstated after judges determined the president does not have the authority to remove them. An outcome favorable to Trump in that case could pave the way for him to also fire Jerome Powell. The Trump administration seeking to redefine the meaning of harm under the Endangered Species Act, in a move which environmentalists warn would threaten the survival of hundreds of plant and animal species. The proposed rule would allow industry to degrade or destroy habitats of endangered species, including panthers, sea turtles, bald eagles, spotted owls, gray wolves, and humpback whales. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the United States will determine in the coming days whether ending Russia's war on Ukraine is doable and may soon withdraw U.S. involvement.
We need to figure out here now within a matter of days whether this is doable in the short term, because if it's not, then I think we're just going to move on from our perspective.
The comments reflect the tensions between Washington and Kyiv and the growing wedge between Trump and its European counterparts as they try to compensate for the change in U.S. involvement in the Ukraine war under Trump. Meanwhile, Trump said on Thursday his administration would sign a deal with Kyiv in 1 week, exchanging security for access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. The details of the deal are said to still be under negotiation. Inside Ukraine, Russian air attacks earlier today killed 1 person in Sumy and another in Kharkiv. The heavy bombardment in a residential area of Kharkiv wounded dozens of others, including children. In Florida, a 20-year-old son of a sheriff's deputy killed 2 people and injured at least 6 others when he opened fire Thursday on the Florida State University campus. Phoenix Ickner used a gun that was the former service weapon of Leon County Sheriff's Deputy Jessica Ickner, his mother. The suspect was also a member of the Sheriff's Youth Advisory Council. A motive has yet to be disclosed. And here in New York, a federal grand jury indicted Luigi Mangione, charging him with stalking and murder through the use of a firearm in the December shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The murder charge holds a possible death penalty sentence if convicted. Mangione's lawyer accused Attorney General Pam Bondi of prejudicing the grand jury when she signaled recently she would seek the death penalty for Mangione. His defense said, quote, the stakes could not be higher. The United States government intends to kill Mr. Mangione as a political stunt, unquote. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.